Hi guys, my name is Karthik and I'm from executeautomation.com and welcome to part 10 of our C# for automation testing video series. And in this video, I'll be talking about working with conditions or selection statements in C#. So before watching this part, I would request you to watch part 8 and 9 since this part is going to be a continuation of those two parts. Alright, so let's get started. Well, what is this conditional or selection statements of C#? The actions that a program takes or expressed in statements. So whatever actions that you take in a program are all expressed in a statements, and common actions including the declaration of a variable, assigning values, calling methods, looping through collections, and branching to one or other block of a code depends on the given conditions. So the order in which the statements are executed in a program is called the flow of controls or flow of executions. That's very important. And the flow of controls may vary every time that the program is running, depending on how the program reacts to input that it receives at runtime. So what is the different statements available in C# then? Well, there are some categories, and these are some of the keywords which are used in C#. The selection statement has the following keywords like if, else, switch case, and iteration statements are something which we'll talk about in next video of this course, where you will be using some of the keywords like do, for each, in, while, etc. And there are some jump statements like break, continue, default, go to, return, yield, etc. And some of the exception handling statements like throw, try catch, try finally, try catch finally, and all those are different kinds of statements available in C#. We will talk some of these statements like selection, iteration, and exception handling statements. Jump statements will be something which we will be talking about a little bit. Not every keyword is available. For example, we'll not be working with continue, or we'll not be working with the yield, and we'll not be working with the go to. Rather, we will be talking about something like break keyword, return keyword, default keyword. And as you already know, there is a keyword called return, which we already discussed when we were discussing about method return types in our previous videos, right? All right. So what is this selection statements is all about in C#? A selection statement causes the program control to be transferred to a specific flow based upon whether a certain condition is true or not. The following keywords are used in selection state as we saw in our previous slide, like if, else, switch case, default. So these are the different kinds of keywords we'll be using in our selection statements. So let's see this in action and understand how things work. So for that, I'm going to flip to Visual Studio. So this is the same project which we have been working in our program from part 1 through part 9. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to delete this code because I'm no more going to use these codes. So I'm just going to make a small cleanup here instead of having all of these unnecessary code which I'm not really going to use. So I'm just going to remove that. So for the first condition statement, let's say the if condition, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to write a very, very simple program. Let's say our test case is going to be failing, right? So I just have to verify that if my test is failed, then you tell me this message, or you say this message, right? So let's say the test case state is pass or fail. So for that, I'm declaring the test case state as Boolean here. And we know that the Boolean has only two values to be entered. One is the true or the false. Let's say I'm going to assign the test case state for now as false. Our test case is actually failing. And now I need to check if my test case is failed, then give a message saying test case failed. Or you say a message saying the test case got passed. Just simple. And in order to say this in a plain English word, we use if the test case failed, do this, or do that. So instead of or, we have a keyword called else, as we saw on the slide. So a very simple code to write is if, and if I double tap here for generating a snippet like this, you can see it automatically generates something like this. If there is a parenthesis, and within that there is a true, so it automatically puts a true there. So only if it is true, then the statement will be executed. Else the statement will not be executed. This if condition block will not be executed. So how to execute the false block? That's why there is a else keyword where this guy will execute the false statement. For example, let's say I want to execute this particular functionality, test case state. So let's say I'm going to pass its test case state, right? And now if I just write console.writeLine, I'm saying test case passed. So this will be called only if the test case state is true, this variable is true. If not, this particular block will be executed. This particular block of code will be executed, the else block, right? So console.writeLine, and here I'm going to say the case failed, right? So simple it is. So now if I execute, you know what is going to happen? It's going to call the else block because our variable is actually false. And now if I execute this code, you can see that it's actually running the case failed statement, right? And now let's say if I change this to true, and if I run this, it says the case got passed, which is great. So this is how you can do for an if condition and perform an operation. But let's say the state has a little bit changed. Let's say there is a requirement where the test case state can be either passed or failed in your first generation of your framework, and in the second generation of your framework, your manager is saying that, hey, I just want to have more states in the framework. Let's say I want to have a pass state, failed state, and inconclusive state, and an exception state, and something like that, something crazy. So if you want to perform these kinds of different statements, then the Boolean is not going to really support. Rather, you can just have a string type here, and then you can just perform an operation in a different way. So let's say we have different states of our test case. Just I'm going to comment this code, and I'm going to write it maybe. So the states are going to be something like this, states, and I'm going to say the test case states or something like passed, failed, inconclusive. Yeah, let's say we have these three states this time. So now if I want to specify this, I cannot use a true or false here. Rather, I can just say, let's say passed, right? So now I have to verify here if it is passed. In order to verify this, there is a very simple operation that you need to do, is not single equals, but there is a double equal operator. So this operator will actually verify left hand side with right hand side. Mostly the left hand side will be the variable to be verified, and the right hand side will be the value that you're passing in to verify. So the value here is actually passed, right? And if the test case state is going to be passed, then the test case is passed. And else it is failed, but it cannot be else it is failed, right? Because there is one more state as well, inconclusive. So how to actually to verify that particular stuff? That's why there is something called else, and there is one more if statement. It's called if else statement. And now I can just do something like this. If test case state is equal to failed, then do this. And we can have one more else if statement here, just to make sure that tomorrow your manager doesn't come with some other requirement. And here I'm going to say inconclusive, something like this, right? And here I can write the console.writeLine once again, something like this, and the state is inconclusive. So I can just mention here. And now if I try to run this particular piece of code, you can see that the case has passed because I have just passed the string as passed here. And now if I say inconclusive, and if I run this code, you can see that the case is inconclusive. So it is actually bringing the exact else if statement here. So which is kind of cool, right? It's just working fine as expected. You can also do a small refactoring here. If your if statement has got only one piece of statements after the condition, then you don't even have to use this braces. You can just remove this completely, and oops. And if you have a resharper, probably that will also give some suggestions to you. And now you can see that the code has dramatically reduced in size, at least. And now if you run the code, you can see that the code will still run as expected, right? So this is how you can do with the if statements and else if statements. But this is kind of less readable compared to even more readable code that we can create using the switch case statement. And what is this switch case? Again, this is another statement like if condition, but here if you just do double tap, you can see that it brings something called default keyword out there. And here within the switch, what you can do, you can easily pass the test case state, something like this, and you can see that it automatically brings the break keyword once again there. And here you can just do a case. If it is passed, then write this. And break means it won't execute the other case statement at all if it is passed, right? And if it is failed, then you can just copy this line of code and you can paste it right here, and you need to put a colon there, right? And then if the case is actually inconclusive, then you can just put this line of code as well. And since there are two lines of code that I'm using, you need to use the braces out there. It's always a good practice once again, because sometimes you may miss something, so it is better that you do that. All right, and this is the default statement, which means it will execute if you don't pass any of the satisfying value out there, and we'll talk about this in a minute. So it will be saying the case not the one you sent. All right, I'm just going to save this code, and now if I execute this particular line of code, let's say I'm just going to comment this if conditions, and then now if I execute this code, you will see that you will get the inconclusive, which is great. So the switch case statement is again executing, right? And now if let's say if I just do the typo there, inconclusives, and if I execute this, you can see that this time it is executing the default. The case is not the one you sent, right? So it is actually executing this statement. And this is so cool because it is much readable once again. You can easily say that, okay, case passed, case failed, inconclusive, and the default. So it is for the readability purpose, which case is much efficient. And if else is no difference with that. And I guess there is some performance difference with both of them, but I'm not very sure about it. And you really don't even incur these kind of situations of seeing the performance difference while you do automation testing with C#. And that's it, guys. This is how you can perform the conditional statements using C#, using if, else, if, and switch case. So once again, thank you very much for watching this video, and have a great day.